oh, oh, la, oh, la, la. Then he goes to his chamber, a grief song, blank alone for his lost. Singing. Chants. Don Juan. Beowulf. The neo-cynical accommodation to the given has an aura of blank. It no longer is self-confidently naked. Diffidence. Plaintiveness. Slaughterdyke. That's funny. La. Then Then he goes to his chamber, a grief song chants alone for his lost. Too large all seems, homestead and house. So the helmet of Vaders hid in his heart for Haribald waves of woe. No way could he take to avenge the slayer slaughter so foul. Nor e'en could he harass that hero at all with loathing deed, though he loved him not. And so for the sorrow his soul endured, men's gladness he gave up, and God's light chose. Lands and cities he left his sons, as the wealthy do, when he went from earth. There was strife and struggle twixt Swede and Geat o'er the width of waters. War arose, hard battle horror, when Hraethel died, and Ognathiau's offspring grew strife keen, bold, nor brooked o'er the sea's pact of peace, but pushed their hosts to harass in hatred by Hrasnibior. Men of my folk for that feud had vengeance, for woeful war, 'tis widely known, though one of them had bought it with blood of his heart, a bargain hard. For Hastenth proved fatal that fray, for the first of Geats. At morn I heard was the murderer killed by kinsman for kinsman, with clash of sword, when Ognithio met Eofor there. Wide split the war-helm won he fell, hoary skiffling. The hand that smote him of feud was mindful, nor flinched from the death blow. For all that he gave me, my gleaming sword repaid him at war, such power I wielded for lordly treasure. With land he entrusted me, homestead and house. He had no need from Swedish realm, or from spare Dane folk, or from men of the gifts to get him help, some warrior worse for wage to buy. For all that he gave me, my gleaming sword, such power I wield for lordly treasures. Land trusted, bed and house. He had no need for Swedish realm, or from Spear-Dane folk, or from men of the gifts to get him help, some warrior worse for wage to buy. Ever I fought in the front of all, soul to the fore, and so shall I fight while I bide in life, and this blade shall last that early and late hath loyal proved, since by my doughtiest Daegrin fell. Ever I fought in the front of all, soul to the fore, and so shall I fight while I bide in life, and this blade shall last that early and late hath loyal proved, since by my doubtiness Daegrin fell. Behold, then, most worshipful, how these doctors and learned men argue, even like the philosophers of the heathen whom thou didst blank. Chateaubriand. Behold then, most worshipful, how these doctors and learned men argue. For they declare the gods to have been natural elements, sun and sky and storm, even as did thy opponents. And like them, as thou saidst, they are nowise at one with each other in their explanations. For of old some boasted that Hera was the air, and some that she signified the love of woman and man, and some that she was the waters above the earth, and others that she was the earth beneath the waters, and others that she was the night, for that night is the shadow of earth, as if, forsooth, the men who first worshipped Hera had understanding of these things. And when Hera and Zeus quarrel unseemly, as Homer declareth, this meant, said the learned in thy days, no more than the strife and confusion of the elements, and was not in the beginning of idle, slanderous tale. Come blank Pan, whom rural haunts delight. Come leaping agile, wandering, starry light. Hours in season or I wait thy high command, and round thy throne in graceful order stand.
به نام یزدان بخشاینده ضمن عرض سلام و خوش آمدگویی خدمت
Lurid,
مخاطبین عزیز. قبل از اجرای برنامه جا داره که یک مسئله
Isiad.
رو بیان کنم و اون اینه که
That might be
گروه مستان قبل از هر اجرایی یا در هر اجرای خودش کنسرت رو به پاس زحمات استادان بزرگ به یکی از اساتید تقدیم میکنه. در کنسرت گذشته گروه مستان که با نام جدال عقل و عشق بود، کنسرت به جناب استاد محمودی بختیاری تقدیم شد و در کنسرت جدیدمون کنسرت رو به استاد محمود تیاری تقدیم کردیم به پاس 40 سال زحمت و تلاش در
I call strong Pan, the substance of the whole, ethereal, marine, earthly, general soul. Immortal fire, for all the world is thine, and all are parts of thee, O power divine. Come, blessed Pan, whom rural haunts delight. Come, leaping, agile, wandering, starry light. The hours and seasons wait thy high command, and round thy throne in graceful order stand. Goat-footed, horned, bacchanalian Pan, fantastic power, for whom the world began, whose various parts by thee inspired combine in endless dance and melody divine. In thee a refuge from our fears we find, those fears peculiar to the human kind. Thee, shepherds, streams of water, goats rejoice, thou lovest the chase, and echoes secret voice. The sportive nymphs thy every step attend, and all thy works fulfill their destined end. O all-producing power, much famed, divine, the world's great ruler, rich increase is thine. All fertile paean, heavenly splendor pure, in fruits rejoicing, and in caves obscure. True serpent-horned Jove, whose dreadful rage, when roused, is hard for mortals to assuage. By thee the earth-wide, bosomed, deep and long, stands on a basis permanent and strong. The unwearied waters of the rolling sea, profoundly spreading, yield to thy decree. Old Okeanos, too, reveres thy high command, whose liquid arms begirt the solid land. The spacious air, whose nutrimental fire and vivid blasts the heat of life inspire. The lighter frame of fire, whose sparkling eye shines in the summit of the azure sky, submit alike to thee. Whole general sway, all parts of matter various formed obey. All natures change through thy protecting care, and all mankind thy liberal bounties share. For these, where'er dispersed through boundless space, still find thy providence support their race. Come, Bacchanalian, blessed power draw near, fanatic Pan, thy humble suppliant hear. Propitious to these holy rites attend, and grant my life may meet a prosperous end. Drive panic fury too wherever found from humankind to earth's remotest bound.
فتوای تو میگیرن جان از ما، تو جان میبخشی و اینجا به فتوای تو میگیرن جان از ما. نمیدانم کیم من، نمیدانم کیم من، آدمم روحم خدایم یا که شیطانم. تو با خود آشنایم کن، تو با خود آشنایم کن.
Here shall you quaff beneath the shade sweet blank draughts that injure none, nor fear lest Mars the realm invade of Semele's Thyonian son, lest Cyrus on a foe too weak lay the rude hand of wild excess, his passion on your chaplet wreak, or spoil your undeserving dress.
به خود آ تا که دریابی، خدا در خویشتن پیداست، خدا در خویشتن پیداست. همای از دست این عالم پر پرواز خود بگشود و در خورشید و آتش سوخت. همای از دست این عالم پر پرواز خود بگشود و در خورشید و آتش سوخت. خداوندا بسوزانم، خداوندا بسوزانم، همایم کن، همایم کن. نمیخواهم در این عالم بمانم، نمیخواهم
Same old man and soul. Same old blank. The same content. Adorno? Whitman. Night and death. Night on the prairies. The supper is over. Fire on the ground burns low. The wearied emigrants sleep, wrapped in their blankets. I walk by myself. I stand and look at the stars. I think now, I never realized before. Now I absorb immortality and peace. I admire death and test propositions. How plenteous, how spiritual, how resume. Same old man and soul, the same old aspirations, and the same content. I was thinking the day most splendid till I saw what the not day exhibited. I was thinking this globe enough till there sprang out, so noiseless around me, myriads of other globes. Now, while the great thoughts of space and eternity fill me, I will measure myself by them. And now, touched with the lives of other globes, arrived as far along as those of the earth, or waiting to arrive, or passed on farther than those of the earth, I henceforth no more ignore them than I ignore my own life. For the lives of the earth arrived as far as mine, or waiting to arrive. Oh, I see now that life cannot exhibit all to me as the day cannot. I see that I am to wait for what will be exhibited by death. You think that the blank sentence is more desirable than a fixed sentence, variable? Joyce?
که وی خود را در آنجا کرده پنهان. اگر در کعبه می‌گردد نمایان، اگر در کعبه می‌گردد نمایان، پس بگرد تا بگردیم، بگرد تا بگردیم. چرا بیهوده میکوشی؟ در اینجا مردم آزاری، در آنجا از گناه آری، نمیدانم چه پنداری. در اینجا همدم و همسایه‌ات در رنج و بیماری، چه پیغامی که جز با یک زبان گفتن نمیداند، چه سلطانی که جز در خانه اش گفتن نمیداند، چه دیداری، چه دیداری که جز دینار و درهم از شما سفتن نمیداند. به دنبال چه میگردی که ایرانی، خرد گم کردی شاید نمیدانی، خرد گم کردی شاید نمیدانی. از جان خود سیری، که خاموشی نمیگیری، لبت را چون لبان فرخی دوزد، تو را در آتش اندیشت سوزد، هزاران فتنه انگیزد، تو را بر صندل میخانه آویزد.
Why does the state undertake to regulate and control corporations and other business agencies? What type of supervision does your state provide over banking and insurance corporations? In your judgment, do you think that this supervision is adequate? Do you think that an innocent depositor who places his money in a bank chartered by the state should lose his money if the bank fails? What has been done in some states to protect the depositor? To what extent have bank guarantee deposit laws been successful? Is it proper to regulate by law the hours of labor if men are willing to work longer hours for increased pay? If an employee is injured while at work, should his employer pay for the injury the same as he would if by accident a machine were broken? What are some difficulties in the way of penal administration? Should the criminal remain idle? Discuss. How may convict labor be utilized? What are the advantages and disadvantages of convict labor? When has a criminal been properly disciplined? Do you think that the indeterminate sentence is more desirable than a fixed sentence? Explain. What is the purpose of the probation system? What attitude should society take toward one who has committed a crime? Discuss. Do you think that private charities are desirable? To what extent, if any, should they be supervised by the state? Why should there be state supervision of local, public, charitable, and correctional institutions? Why is the giving of aid to the poor a difficult problem? Describe the composition of state boards of health. How have boards of health attempted to prevent disease? In what ways do state and local health authorities come in contact with each other? What has the state done in the way of lending financial aid for educational purposes? Of what significance is compulsory school attendance? What are some difficulties experienced with it? Should there be a number of institutions of higher learning in the state? Few institutions or a single institution? Discuss. How does the state undertake to regulate conduct in the interest of public morals? Does the responsibility for good government rest upon the police force, the militia, or upon the citizens themselves? Comment on the following quotations. The best system of education is that which draws its chief support from the voluntary effort of the community, from the individual efforts of citizens, and from those burdened of taxations, and from those burdens of taxation which they voluntarily impose upon themselves. Jails and state prisons are the complement of schools. So many less as you have of the latter, so many more you must have of the former. Horace Mann. All who have meditated on the art of governing mankind have been convinced that the fate of empires depends on the education of the youth. Aristotle. Education is a better safeguard of liberty than a standing army. If we retrench the wages of the schoolmaster, we must raise those of the recruiting sergeant. Edward Everett. Education is the cheap defense of nations. Burke.
تا داروغ را گوییم در مسجد بخواب گفت تا داروغ را گوییم در مسجد بخواب گفت مسجد خوابگاه مردم بدکار نیست هی بده پنهان و خود را وارهان گفت کار شرق کار درهم و دینار نیست گفت آنقدر مستی آنقدر مستی زهی از سر بر افتادت کلاه گفت در سر عقل باید گفت در سر عقل باید بی کلاهی آر نیست
Who has not seen in imagination, when looking into the sunset sky, the gardens of the Hesperides, and the blank of all those fables?
گفت باید حد زنند هوشیار مردم مس را گفت هوشیاری بیار اینجا کسی هوشیار نیست
Chorus? I know not how significant it is, or how far it is an evidence of singularity, that an individual should thus consent his pettiest walk with the general movement of the race. But I know that something akin to the migratory instinct in birds and quadrupeds, which, in some instances, is known to have affected the squirrel tribe, compelling them to a general and mysterious movement, in which they were seen, say some, crossing the broadest rivers, each on its particular chip, with its tail raised for a sail and bridging narrower streams with their dead. It's something like the furor which affects the domestic cattle in the spring, and which is referred to a worm in their tails, affects both nations and individuals, either perennially or from time to time. Not a flock of wild geese cackles over our town, but it is to some extent unsettles the value of real estate here, and if I were a broker I should probably take that disturbance into account. Then longen folk to gon on pilgrimages, and palmiers for to seeken strange strawns. Every sunset which I witness inspires me with the desire to go to a west as distant and as fair as that into which the sun goes down. He appears to migrate westward daily and tempt us to follow him. He is the great western pioneer whom the nations follow. We dream all night of those mountain ridges in the horizon, though they may be of vapor only, which were last gilded by his rays. The island of Atlantis and the islands and gardens of the Hesperides, a sort of terrestrial paradise, appear to have been the great west of the ancients, enveloped in mystery and poetry. Who has not seen in imagination, when looking into the sunset sky, the gardens of the Hesperides and the foundation of all those fables? Columbus felt the westward tendency more strongly than any before. He obeyed it and found a new world, fill Castile and Leon. The herd of men in those days scented fresh pastures from afar, and now the sun had stretched out all the hills, and now was dropped into the western bay. At last he rose and twitched his mantle blue, tomorrow to fresh woods and pastures new. Where on the globe can there be found an area of equal extent with that occupied by the bulk of our states, so fertile and so rich and varied in its productions, and at the same time so habitable by the European as this is? Michaud, who knew but part of them, says that the species of large trees are much more numerous in North America than in Europe. In the United States there are more than 140 species that exceed 30 feet in height. In France there are but 30 that attain this size. Later botanists more than confirm his observations. Humboldt came to America to realize his youthful dreams of a tropical vegetation and beheld it in its most greatest perfection in the primitive forests of the Amazon, the most gigantic wilderness on the earth, which he has so eloquently described. The geographer Guyot, himself a European, goes farther than I am ready to follow him. Yet not when he says, "As the plant is made for the animal, as the vegetable world is made for the animal world, America is made for the man of the old world. Man of the old world sets out upon his way, leaving the highlands of Asia. He descends from station to station towards Europe. Each of his steps is marked by a new civilization superior to the preceding, by a greater power of development. Arrived at the Atlantic, he pauses on the shore of this unknown ocean, and bounds of which he knows not, and turns upon his footprints for an instant. When he has exhausted the rich soil of Europe and has reinvigorated himself, then recommences his adventurous career westward as in the earliest ages." So far Guyot. Dresden clock continued ticking on the mantelpiece. The footman sat upon the dining table, holding the second housemaid on his knees, who had been so careful while her mistress lived. Goggle? Aunt Helen. Miss Helen Slingsby was my maiden aunt, and lived in a small house near a fashionable square, cared for by servants to the number of 4. Now when she died there was silence in heaven, and silence at her end of the street. The shutters were drawn, and the undertaker wiped his feet. He was aware that this sort of thing had occurred before. The dogs were handsomely provided for, but shortly afterwards, the parrot died too. The Dresden clock continued ticking on the mantelpiece, and the footman sat upon the dining table, holding the second housemaid on his knees, who had always been so careful while her mistress lived. O happy bough that the wise blank chose to keep to grace her sacred altar and honor her, the bough that she held dear. Nursemaid? Chorus?
گفت که از دوزخ عین کوکردار قدری آتش به رویان بگذار بگرفت و ببرد و باز آورد.
For that famous crown I feel no longing, that sacred wreath gold-haired Apollo wore, nor that of the god of India they adore. Simple hat round my head goes circling, still less do I wish for the palm they bring. That soft branch adorning Cyprian shore, one alone, that Athens honors more, I wish for, which heaven has in its granting. O happy bough that the wise goddess chose to keep, to grace her sacred altar, and honor her, the bough that she held dear. Then, let mind grant me the skillfulness to sing of you, for now I hope to render you the equal of a mortal laurel, here.
هر کسی میسوخت ذاتش خویش هر کسی میسوخت ذاتش
The times now run beyond me. God, better them. Hurry. Dickinson?
ذاتش خویش هر کسی میسوخت
Charles de Léon Ballade. Through the forest of gloomy sadness, one day I chanced to make my way, and there I met with love's goddess, who spoke and asked me why I strayed. And I replied, fortune decreed this day, exiled me to these woods long ago. I might rightly call myself always the man who wanders a path unknown. Smiling in her great lowliness, she answered, friend, if you could say why you are filled with this distress, I'd try to help you in every way. For I set your heart on the road one day to all joy. Who has led it awry so? It troubles me now to see you stray, the man who wanders a path unknown. Alas, I said, my sovereign princess, why should I tell you? You know my fate, it's death who brings us mournfulness. He has taken the one I loved away, she in whom all my fond hopes lay, who guided me, as my friend below while she lived, so I need not play the man who wanders a path unknown. Blind I am, cast adrift today, here and there with my stick I stray, lest I'm quite lost, feeling my road. It's a great shame, I must be always the man who wanders a path unknown. When I am lying in my bed, I can never rest there in peace all the night, my thoughts well read, in sweet thoughts, history, making me listen carefully. Who dare disobey? Not I, for fear it will be angry, so I let sleep slip by. In that book are written, I said, the tales of my marvelous lady, often hearing them in my head, my heart laughs joyfully. They are praised so truthfully, and they raise him so on high. Of them I too am never weary, so I let sleep slip by. If my eyelids seek rest instead, and drowsiness makes them heavy, my heart berates them, and yet he still can't gain their mastery. He sighs there ceaselessly all to himself and without a lie. Soothing him is hard for me, so I let sleep slip by. Oh, love, I cannot easily rule my heart, day and night. He wishes to serve you endlessly, so I let sleep slip by. Soon, if God wills, the shadow of my sadness will pass away, when the lovely one I love so and fine weather are on display. And do you know when, I say, when the sweet gracious light of your beauty itself shall play through the windows of my eyes? Then thought's chamber will glow with great joy, and all arrayed in delight present its lovely show. And then my heart will wake that slept with grief so many days, no longer asleep, for a ray so bright will strike with all God's good aid to the windows of my eyes. Alas, when shall I come to know such a happening and such a day? My mistress I have longed for so, soon will it be, do you think, oh say? For my heart will languish always in gloom, without signs of life, until it seems that brightness play through the windows of my eyes. Comfort into my heart will flow, as great as any beneath the sky, when it looks out at you, love, so, through the windows of my eyes. The very first day of the month of May is treating me courteously, for just as I have nothing today in my heart but torment and grief, he is also equally troubled, rain-drenched and wind-blown. How different he used to be in days that my life has known. I think he's doing his best, I'd say, to keep me faithful company, and I'm content in truth, for they, the wretched, find their thoughts may be greatly lightened in misery, when they've a friend of their own. I have proved it certainly in days that my life has known. Alas, I've seen May happy at play, so lovely for all who may be, that I could never fully relate all the pleasure and jollity of which he had the mastery. For love in his abbey alone appointed him head of the sea. In days that my life has known, the time now run beyond me. God better them rapidly. For pleasure is lying low, who used to live so joyously in days that my life has known. In my lost days of childhood I flowered, and later in my youth I became the fruit, then green, unripe, from the tree of pleasure, my mistress Folly cast me down at its foot. Because of it reason, who when it suits puts right all things, with no wrong intention, in her great wisdom, and quiet as I should, I'm left to ripen on straw in prison. and I have lingered on endless time here with not a taste of the air of freedom. But I'm content. Without doubt, I swear, it's all for the best. Though I've become withered by idleness, now age draws on. In me every spark of foolish passion is quite dead since, hid from everyone. I'm left to ripen on straw and prison. God, forge us a peace, that's my desire. Then I'll be quickly refreshed for one, wiped clean of the stain of unhappiness. In France once more they're taking the sun. I wait, fair weather, a humble man, hoping that God will ordain salvation. That's why he has done what he has done. I'm left to ripen on straw and prison. I'm a fruit of winter, and so less tender than the fruit of summer. So their decision is to let my hard greenness turn softer. I'm left to ripen on straw and prison. Ballads, songs, and plaintive rhymes, all long forgotten are by me, for I've been held in endless time, numbed with sadness and ennui. Yet to dispel anxiety as once I did, I'll try and see if I can make true poetry. At least I'll do my very best, though I know and understand I'll find the language of my land all rusted away by this neglect. The stream of pleasant words runs dry, and me now stale with age's follies, but I'll still follow my desire, even with true speech denied me. So I beg all who heard me speak long ago in my youthful freshness, when I was full of joyousness, to excuse what they may reject. Never before have I seemed a man so coarse of speech. In truth I am all rusted away by this neglect. Lovers have words that please the eye, and language fresh and lively. All the pleasures that they try speak for them. I too have been, though no more, of that company. There I found the loveliest speech most easily, wherever I wished. So I squandered all my finesse, and I'll find whatever I retain, when I put it to the test again, all rusted away by this neglect. I ought to be immune from all this, but they say I yielded amiss, without a blow, but I should expect good hope, says a youth renewed, so I'll go burnish my heart anew, all rusted away by this neglect. Not long ago in the early morning the white sun, bearing his candle shine, into my close chamber came stealing in secret. The day was St. Valentine's. All the brightness he had brought wakened me from the sleep of care, in which I'd passed the whole night there, on the harsh bed of wearied thought. On that day, too, all the birds came flocking, to share what they had of love's treasure, aloud in their own sweet Latin calling, demanding nature grant equal measure. All she ordained for them they sought, a mate, that is, as each might select. Their noise was such none could have slept on the harsh bed of wearied thought. Then, drenching my pillow with tears, I lamented my cruel destiny, saying, "You birds can never have a fear of finding the joy and pleasure you seek. Each one an agreeable mate has caught, while I have none, for death has betrayed me, taken my mate, so I languish grieving on the harsh bed of wearied thought. Let them choose a Valentine as they ought, those men and women of love's party. This year I'm alone, no comfort for me, on the harsh bed of wearied thought." Arms and the man I sing, who, forced by fate and haughty Juno's unrelenting hate, expelled and exiled, left the Trojan shore. Long labors, both by sea and land, he bore, and in the doubtful war, before he won the Latian realm, and built the destined town. His banished gods restored to rights divine, and settled sure succession in his line. From whence the race of Albin's fathers come, and the long glories of majestic Rome. O Muse, the causes and the crimes relate, what goddess was provoked, and whence her hate? For what offense the Queen of Heaven began to persecute so brave, so just a man, involved his anxious life in endless cares, exposed to wants and hurried into wars. Can heavenly minds such high resentment show, or exercise their spite in woe? Against Tiber's mouth, but far away, an ancient town was seated on the Say, a Tyrian colony, the people made stout for war, and studious of their trade. Carthage the name, beloved by Juno more than her own Argus or the Samian shore. Here stood her chariot. Here, if heaven were kind, the seat of awful empire she designed. Yet she had heard an ancient rumor fly, long cited by the people of the sky, that times to come should see the Trojan race her Carthage ruin and her towers deface, nor thus confined the yoke of sovereign sway should on the necks of all the nations lay. She pondered this and feared it was in hate. Nor could she forget the war she waged of late, for conquering Greece against the Trojan state. Besides long causes working in her mind, and secret seeds of envy lay behind. Deep graven in her heart the doom remained of partial Paris, and her form disdained of partial Paris. The grace bestowed on ravished Ganymede, Electra's glories and her injured bed, each was a cause alone, and all combined to kindle her vengeance in her haughty mind. For this, far distant from the Latian coast, she drove the remnants of the Trojan host. And 7 long years the unhappy wandering train were tossed by storms and scattered through the main. Such time from such toil required the Roman name, such length of labor for so vast a frame. Now scarce the Trojan fleet with sails and oars had left behind the fair Sicilian shores. Entering the cheerful shouts, the watery main, and plowing frothy furrows in the main, when laboring still with endless discontent, the Queen of Heaven did thus her fury vent. Then my vanquished must I yield, said she, and must the Trojans reign in Italy. So fate will have it, and Jove adds his force, nor can power divert their happy course. Could angry Pallas with revengeful spleen the Grecian navy burn and drown the main. She, for the fault of one offending foe, the bolts of Jove himself presumed to throw. With whirlwinds from beneath she tossed the ship, and bare exposed the bosom of the deep. Then, as an angle gripes the trembling game, the wretch yet hissing with her father's flame, she strongly seized, and with a burning wound she transfixed, and naked on a rock she bound. But I, who walk in awful state above the majesty of heaven, the sister wife of Jove, for length of years my fruitless force employ against the thin remains of ruined Troy. What nations now to Juno's power will pray, or offsprings on my slighted altars lay? Thus raged the goddess, and with furies fraught, the restless regions of the storm she sought, where in a spacious cave of living stone the tyrant Aeolus from his airy throne with power imperial curbs the struggling winds, and sounding tempests in dark prison binds. This way and that the impatient captives tend, and pressing for relief the mountains rend. High in the hall the undaunted monarch stands, and shakes his scepter, and their rage commands. Which did he not, their unresisted sway would sweep the world before them in their way. Earth, air, and seas through empty space would roll, and heaven would fly before the driving soul. In fear of this, the Father of Gods confined their fury to these dark abodes, and locked them safe within, oppressed with mountain loads, imposed a king with arbitrary sway to loose their fetters or their force allay. to whom the sun
What'll do? Is it not she I hear hard by? Aussi est ferme ma voix, je vous alerte.
Oh how have I blank this language from the sovereign of my joys. Perished. Baudelaire. Thomas Otway.
La no no oh, no no oh, oh, oh. What means my love? Oh, how have I deserved this language from the sovereign of my joys? Stop, stop those tears, Monimia, for they fall like baneful dew, distempered God. I feel them chill me to the very heart. Oh, false Castalio, most forsworn, attempt no farther to delude my faith. My heart is fixed, and you shall shake no more. Who told you so? What hell-bred villain durst profane the sacred of my love? My brother, knowing on what terms I'm here, the unhappy object of your father's licentious forced to love and durst affront brutal passion. 'Tis I have been to blame, and only I, false to my brother and unjust to thee. For oh, he loves thee, when this day owned it, taxed me with mine, and claimed a right above me. Was your love so very tame to drink, or rather than lose him, abandon me? I, knowing him precipitate and rash, to calm his heat, seal my happiness, seek to comply with his unruly will, talked, and granted all he asked, lest he in rage might have our loves betrayed, and I forever had money lost. Would you then? Did you? Can you own it too? 'Twas poorly done, unworthy of yourself, and I can never think you meant me fair. Is this Monimia? Surely no, till now I ever thought her dove-like, soft and kind. Who trusts his heart with woman surely lost, You were made fair on purpose to undo us, whilst greedily we snatch the alluring bait, and ne'er distrust the poison that it hides. When love ill-placed would find a means to break, it never wants pretenses or excuse. Man, therefore, was a lord-like creature made, rough as the winds and as inconstant, a lofty aspect given him for command, easily softened when he would betray. Like conquering tyrants, you our breasts invade, where you are pleased to forage for a while, but soon you find new conquests out, and leave the ravaged province, ruin it and waste. So, Castalio, you have served my heart. I find the desolation settled there, and I shall ne'er recover peace again. Who can hear this and bear an equal mind? Since you will drive me from you, I must. But, O Monimia, when thou'st banished me, no creeping slave, though tractable and dull as artful woman for her ends would choose, shall ever dote as I have done. For, oh, no tongue my pleasure nor my pain can tell. 'Tis heaven to have thee, and without thee hell. Castalio, stay, we must not part. I find my rage ebbs out, and love flows in apace. These little quarrels love must needs forgive. They rouse up drowsy thoughts and wake the soul. Oh, charm me with the music of thy tongue. I'm ne'er so blessed as when I hear thy vows and listen to the language of thy heart. Where am I? Surely paradise is round me. Sweets planted by the hand of heaven grow here, and every sense is full of thy perfection. To hear thee speak might calm a madman's frenzy, till by attention he forgot his sorrows. But to behold thy eyes, thy amazing beauties, might make him rage again with love as I do. To touch these heavens, but to enjoy thee, oh, thou's nature, whole perfection in one piece. For framing thee heaven took unusual care, as its own beauty it designed thee fair, and formed thee by the best loved angel there. Orphan, Thomas Otway. 16. To you, great judges in this writing age, the sons of wit and patrons of the stage, with all those humble thoughts which still have swayed his pride, much doubting, trembling and afraid of what is his want of merit due, and awed with every excellence, the author sends to beg you would be kind and spare those many faults you needs must find.
You to whom wit a common foe is grown, the thing ye scorn and publicly disown. Though now perhaps you're here for other ends, he swears to me ye ought to be his friends. For he ne'er called ye, yet insipid tools, nor wrote one line to tell you were fools. But says of wit ye have so large a store, so very much you never will have more. He ne'er with libel treated yet the town, the names of honest men bedaubed and shown. Nay, never once lampooned the harmless life of suburb virgin or city wife. Satire is the effect of poetry's disease, which, sick of a lewd age, he vents for ease. But now her only strife should be to please, since of ill fate the baneful clouds withdrawn, and happiness again begins to dawn. Since back with joy and triumph he is come, that always drove fears hence, ne'er brought them home. Oft has he ploughed the boisterous ocean o'er, yet ne'er more welcome to the longing shore. Not when he brought home victories before, for then fresh laurels flourished on his brow, and he comes crowned with olive branches now. Receive him, oh receive him as his friends, embrace the blessings which he recommends. Such quiet as your foes shall ne'er destroy, then shake off fears, and clap your hands, joy.